Edith Ludwig and realized that he did not have these terrible thoughts now. Suddenly, the young man noticed a mark on his wife's neck and indignantly asked her what it was. Without waiting for an answer, Killian turned Edith's back to him, pulled down her nightie and saw many bruises. The young master concluded that such bruises could not have been caused by an accidental blow. They had appeared about a day or two ago. Killian asked his wife why she had not told anything earlier and who had done it, but Lady Edith was silent. The young master thought that if it had been done by someone from the manor, the girl with the ruby hair would have told him everything long ago. The next morning, the girl was sitting in her chambers and was very sad. Anna asked the mistress if she was sad because she had not slept well. Lady Edith sighed sadly and replied that unfortunately she had slept too well and soundly, and that was why she was sad. The girl remembered that yesterday her husband left her chambers immediately after discovering the bruises. He apologized for the loss of self-control. The girl said that everything was fine because it was the wife's responsibility and suggested that her husband stay and spend the evening together. Killian replied that he was not an animal to pounce on a wounded man, and after he left, Edith fell fast asleep. When the girl woke up in the morning, she found a sticky ointment on her back, but only Sophia and Killian knew about the bruises. Edith realized that Killian had come into the room and applied the ointment. The girl was upset that she had missed it because of a sound sleep. Suddenly, Killian burst into Edith's chambers with an assistant, said that he had urgent business and ordered someone to get in. Sophia was brought into the chambers, who shouted that the arrest was unacceptable because she was a servant of Count Riegelhoff, sent to look after the mistress. The young master said that a maid who was unable to perform her duties was of no use to Edith. Sophia claimed that since childhood, God has been a close person to her, because she was taught from a young age to be the lady's personal maid. Killian said that a maid doing a good job would not only report the bruises on the mistress's body, but would also treat them. The young master looked at the maid and said that he realized that the only person who could inflict such wounds was her. Lady Edith was surprised at her husband's ingenuity, for he understood everything only by looking at the bruises once. Killian asked the maid if she really thought that the bruises on his wife's body would go unnoticed by her husband, because they were hidden under her clothes. The guy turned to his wife and promised to kick the governess out of the castle, especially since the Riegelhoff family asked to return her unharmed. The young master wondered where the Riegelhoff family was looking, and Edith noticed that it was still morning, and her husband had managed to catch the maid and contact the count. The wife was pleased to realize that her husband finally took her side, began to protect and worry about her. Killian said that Sophia should leave the castle in a carriage sent by the Count of Riegelhoff and instructed Anna to see to it. Lady Edith was surprised that the Riegelhoff family was not afraid of rumors and valued their court dog so much that they sent a carriage to fetch it. The husband told the girl with ruby hair that he wanted to visit Lady Eliza, left the chambers, and the wife began to change clothes. Anna helped to undo the corset of her dress and saw a lot of bruises on the back of the mistress. The maid was dumbfounded and asked why Lady Edith was silent. After that, the maid said that she would now bring medicine for the back, and the mistress was very touched by such care and faithful service. Once, an unknown person in a hood stood near a green sign, which said that it was necessary to fulfill the condition of the second stage. Otherwise, there would be a fine. The man in the hood said that everything was clear to him, but the announcement was strange because the first stage was completely passed. The unknown person thought about it and added that each time the requirements of the system become more and more strange. The hooded man came up with the idea that the villain's character in the novel behaved like a typical girl born with a golden spoon in her mouth. Her main mistake was that she tried to mend relationships with the main characters, but in the scene with the documents, she realized that everything was useless. When the villainess Edith was suspected of committing crimes, she panicked, instead of cold-bloodedly proving her innocence. A hooded unknown person said that he only had influence on the main characters, while the supporting characters were more free of plot. He added that he could not say that this girl, who played the role of Edith, established good relations only with those with whom it was profitable. Incognito said that there was a successful advancement, until suddenly the condition of the first stage appeared. He noted that the influence of the original plot decreases if the conditions are met, and clarified that not much has changed since passing the first stage. The hooded man said that the secondary character's attitude towards Edith had changed and slammed his fist on the table in annoyance. He regretfully shouted that Killian was the main character, but then calmed down and regained his composure. Incognito happily exclaimed that this factor would benefit the perfect scene that would make the main character better. The unknown noted that it was funny to watch everything go against his plan, and then smiled maliciously and pressed a few buttons on the control panel. Running his fingers over the keyboard, he said incognito that he was curious how the 13th Edith would cope with the next condition. After some time in Lady Eliza's chambers, Cliff asked his brother if he had gone mad by letting the maid go because she could be related to the poisoning. Killian said that during an investigation, it would be difficult to incriminate a person just because he was sent by the Count of Rigelhoff. The young master said that he had found a special excuse to kick out the servant girl from the castle, who would cause a lot of trouble for the Ludwig family. The guy added that he did not like the governess at first, which surprised Cliff and Lady Eliza, because they heard how Killian took the maid to the castle. The young master clarified that his decision was approved by the Duke. Even Lady Eliza agreed with him. Cliff did not like it. He asked about the reason. The blonde girl replied that she wanted to talk more about the poisoning and look for the culprits. Lady Eliza explained that it doesn't matter who poisoned her, someone from the Sinclair family or someone from the Rigelhoff family. The important thing is that someone hates her. Eliza said that it would hurt more when the poisoner became known. Killian concluded that it was good that the blonde girl had spoken to the Duke. The young master thought that his father, against the background of the incident with the governess, might take an interest in Edith and find out that she was not valuable to Count Rigelhoff. If it turns out that the marriage concluded because of the interests of the families will end, the guy assumed that because of this, his wife was silent about the bullying. At that moment it dawned on the young man, and he remembered the moment when Edith herself had asked for a maid to be assigned to her, ostensibly to avoid suspicion. Killian guessed that she not only suffered from this story, but also won, because she was able to use her husband in her own interests. Killian was interrupted from his introspection by the question of his brother, who asked what he was thinking, because he was distracted from the conversation with Lady Eliza. The guy apologized to the blonde girl and explained that he had a lot of problems, most of which were because of Edith. Eliza blinked away her tears and nodded understandingly, saying that Killian needed to pay special attention to his wife and take care of her now. Eliza said that while she was being treated, she thought all the time about Edith and how difficult it was for her, because she also took poison. The blonde girl said that the Duke's sons often visited her. Probably Edith was sitting alone and bored. Eliza offered Killian to somehow console Edith, to help her get through difficulties, for example, to take a walk together and talk. The blonde girl asked the young master to be as gentle and sociable with his wife as he was with her. The golden-eyed lad was very displeased with Lady Eliza's kindness towards Lady Edith and her proposal to her brother. Twilight had long fallen, but the girl with ruby hair could not sleep. She was tormented by thoughts about her husband and about recent events. Edith assumed that her husband had already guessed everything, because it is difficult not to combine all the facts and not suspect anything. Firstly, Edith was the victim of beatings from her personal governess, and secondly, a Rigelhoff carriage was sent for Sophie to get her back. Killian understood everything for sure, but realized that it was simply useless to hold his wife as a hostage. It was surprising that he did not kick Edith out of the estate. Instead, he kicked the maid out. The girl thought that if no one else brought up the topic, then perhaps Killian sympathized with his wife. Edith mentally admitted to herself that she was not afraid that she would be thrown out of the estate, because according to the plot of the original, she was assigned a more important role than the servant. However, the girl was worried that Sophia still had to play an important role in several episodes, and it was not known how this would affect Edith. As she leaned against the table, Edith thought that she could no longer hope for her husband's sympathy, because she did not know how much he valued her. The girl with ruby hair realized that she needed to continue to prove her harmlessness so that everything would continue to be calm in the Ludwig family. Lady Edith decided to change her husband's mind at any cost, because he believes that the girl seduced him because of the disadvantageous position. The next day, Killian offered his wife to arrange a small tea party with him, but the answer was unexpected. Lady Edith refused. The young master explained his refusal by saying that he had taken the girl by surprise, and the next day he went to his wife again with a special proposal. Killian said he was aware of what she was eating alone in her room, so he invited her to join the family dinner. Lady Edith again refused on the pretext that she did not want to cause conflicts and spoil the situation with her presence. The young master thought that his wife was right. His father was really wary of her because she had suffered. The next day, in the afternoon, the guy came to his wife again and said that today the weather was great and he wanted to take a walk. Lady Edith looked up from her book and replied that she was grateful for the invitation, but that she was still baking the sun, so she had better stay in the room. The young master closed the door to the room, and his head was instantly filled with negative thoughts that Edith was uncomfortable with him. Killian began to think that he was doing something wrong, and began to reflect that perhaps Edith was still the treacherous and evil woman he thought she was. In his mind, the guy added that she was definitely different from the bad rumors that society wanted about her, and was just in a difficult position. Killian remembered the decision to draw a conclusion about his wife's behavior when he spent time with her, but everything turned out to be not so simple. The guy realized that he was winding himself up in vain. Probably he and his wife did not have the same working hours, and he needed to try another time. Suddenly, the door from his wife's chamber opened, and Lady Edith stepped out into the corridor where Killian had been standing and thinking. A girl with ruby hair asked what the faithful was doing here because he had promised to go for a walk. The young man was confused, did not come up with an answer, and offered to eat strawberry pie, which was brought from a popular confectionery. Lady Edith realized that her husband was talking about the famous pie that Anna had once told her about. Although the girl with ruby hair imagined in detail how delicious the dessert would be, she could resist and refuse. She said that in recent days she had already gained a lot of weight, so she wished her husband bon appetit and hurried to leave. Edith hurriedly walked down the corridor and thought that she should not give up on food and stop playing the role of a sensible and harmless wife who wanted to be left alone. 3 days later, she came to Lady Eliza's chambers, who thought Lady Edith was sad and asked if she was sad about Killian. The girl with ruby hair was shocked by the question, but was able to answer that everything was fine and nothing had happened. The blonde beauty explained that she had recently heard the whispers of the maids. They were discussing Killian, who once again asked for a refusal. Lady Edith said that the servants seemed to be fond of gossip, and that marriage was the most cheerful subject for them. The girl with ruby hair added that she had expressed herself incorrectly the first time and asked her to understand correctly. She explained to the blonde beauty that at the moment she was more grateful to her husband than upset because she saw how much he cared. Eliza asked Edith why she was pushing him away, if Killian was so good, a question that baffled the young master's wife. After a moment's thought, Edith tried to gently explain that Killian was an unfortunate man, having sacrificed so much for the well-being of the duchy. The girl with ruby hair said that there is nothing wrong with marriages of convenience, but everything is bad if their families are at war with each other. Edith smiled and said she didn't want her husband to pay attention to her out of a sense of duty, and she thought she couldn't say that Killian was testing her. The blonde girl protested loudly, and Edith argued the opposite and said that her husband constantly came with various proposals. Edith said that recently her husband came with a proposal to improve her health through physical activity, and asked Edith if she could ride horses. Hearing the negative answer, the young master offered to teach, but Edith refused again and barely got rid of her annoying husband. A girl with ruby hair told Elisa that the young man had been breaking into Renan's office for the 2nd day in a row and watching her work. The blonde beauty was shocked by Edith's stories about the young master's behavior and asked to be gentle with him. One day, Killian came to his wife and firmly stated that he knew that today she was free and could devote time to him. Edith thought that, in fact, the only things she did during the day were helping Renan at the office and eating. Killian offered to go to the opera, but his wife again refused and offered the guy to spend time with Eliza because she felt better. The husband was shocked by the words of the faithful, but Edith assured that everyone knows how close her husband and Eliza are, and it does not affect her in any way. This greatly angered the husband, and he asked his wife what she thought of him. Initially, Edith replied that the opinion about the guy was obvious. He was her husband. However, at this moment, the girl thought that if the young master was testing her, then she needed to answer in a different way. Lady Edith clarified that Killian was her husband, but only on paper. The young master was greatly annoyed by the answer. The girl with ruby hair looked down and said that she understood that she and her husband were married for convenience. Lady Edith said that she realizes that this marriage has become a shackle for Killian, which keeps him from the opportunity to be with the woman he loves. In her mind, Edith concluded that perhaps for Killian, his wife was a jealous and spiteful woman who, like a snake or a demon, clung to marriage. Killian was angry at the words about her husband only on paper and asked if his wife did not want to spend time with him, and then assumed that his wife had found someone else. The young master assumed that the other man was Renan Filch. Lady Edith was simply discouraged by her husband's speech. Killian moved towards the exit. Thinking that he was the only one in this room who imposed himself and was jealous, the guy realized that he did not like his wife at all. The girl with ruby hair looked at the face of her faithful and realized that the check was long over. Edith stretched out her hand to him. Killian touched his wife's hand and asked that, being a husband on paper, he could lie next to his wife and cuddle in bed. Hearing the request, the girl with the ruby hair was indignant and tried to pull her hand away, but the young master would not let go of his wife. He apologized for his behavior and kissed him. Edith did not resist, but realized that if this continued, there would be misunderstandings again. Kiliana kissed his wife on the neck, and she mentally scolded herself for allowing this, because then her husband would again say that he was seduced. The brunette again found herself in the dark, where the light emanated from a green sign that the conditions of the second stage were met. The table was updated. An inscription appeared that exclusive rights were obtained and the author's rights were reduced. The girl was happy and shouted that she understood how the system works. Every time she sleeps with her husband, the conditions are simpler. The sign was updated once again and a message appeared on it about the rejection of Killian's 10 proposals. The girl concluded that she was mistaken and thought that someone was mocking and forcing her to play with her husband's feelings. The brunette smiled contentedly, remembered how she plucked up the courage and still fulfilled the condition. The only thing that interested the girl with the ruby hair was whether the young master was very upset about this. The hooded man was angered by this situation. He could not understand how she coped so quickly. He didn't understand how it was possible to refuse something 10 times to a loved one, and he remembered the couple of Eliza and Cliff. A person in love is able to fulfill any desire of the other half and all the time give without demanding anything in return. A lover is even ready to accept any unreasonable demands just to hug a dear person. An unknown person said that he had never seen the character of Lady Edith fulfill the condition of the second stage. Incognito concluded that he was mistaken. Edith did not feel anything for Killian and realized that his influence on the main characters was weakening. The hooded man imagined with horror what would happen if Edith passed the condition of the third stage. The author's rights will be completely cancelled. The plot will develop through the efforts of the characters. Events will continue, and everyone's favorite blonde beauty will grow old and eventually die. The system demanded that the unknown set the condition for the third stage. He said it several times. But each attempt was deplorable. The system called the given conditions of the third stage unacceptable. Incognito almost despaired. At that moment he came up with the idea to set such a condition for the system to kill Edith, but not with his own hands. After spending the night together, the young master asked his wife if she was all right. Edith replied positively and added that she did not expect much. Killian replied that muscles are formed during training. The young master whispered in his wife's ear that her body was much more amazing than him, then kissed the girl's forehead. Lady Edith could not believe that the events of the novel had changed a little, and the faithful was really gentle with her. The wife smiled at her husband and jokingly said that he was going to crush her now because he hugged her so tightly. The young master turned to Lady Edith and asked if her words about her husband were sincere only on paper. The girl did not understand why he was asking this question, as if he really cared about it, and she agreed. The question prompted Lady Edith to speculate about her husband. It was certainly not a matter of pity, otherwise he would not have gone so far. In the original, Killian could not get the love of Lady Eliza, so perhaps he was pushed by the desire for intimacy and loneliness. The girl with ruby hair looked carefully at her husband and thought that she guessed the reason for his behavior. Killian has lived in the shadow of his brother all his life. Cliff has always defeated Killian in sword training. Cliff is the direct heir of the Duke, which is why so much attention has been paid to him since childhood. Even the girl she loves looks only at her brother. It is not for nothing that he is the main male character of the novel, who has everything. Apparently, one day the young master realized that Edith also suffers from loneliness, so he will be able to understand his feelings. Lady Edith touched her husband's cheek and asked what she could do to make him believe her at last. That same evening, Killian invited his wife to the theater. She was amazed by its beauty, decoration, and grandeur. The couple went to the balcony to take their seats, and Lady Edith had a beautiful view of the huge hall. The girl expressed doubt that everything would be heard in such a large hall. Her husband asked if it was really her first time in the capital's theater. Edith thought about the past of her character and was imbued with sympathy because her father did not give her access to music and books, all because of Count Riegelhoff's fear that his daughter will know too much and will begin to resist following instructions. The girl decided to change the topic of conversation and asked what the play was about. Killian replied that the tragedy was called Odelida. One day, Odelida, the daughter of a rich viscount, goes to the forest for berries and finds the wounded Laszlo there. The girl felt sorry for him. Odelida decided to help the wounded man, and he stayed with her until she fully regained her memory. Laszlo turned out to be a prince from the country's neighbors, who fled to the throne because of the struggle. According to the plot, these two fall in love. Odelis's father intervened. He wanted to marry his daughter to the rich Baron Hubert from a neighboring estate. Laszlo persuaded the girl to run away together for the sake of their love, but Baron Hubert was well aware that Odelida loved someone else. A wealthy baron seduced her with his wealth, then the Viscount's daughter abandoned love for the sake of the family's well-being. Odelida sang on stage that Laszlo would forever remain in the girl's heart and said goodbye to him, and Lady Edith cried. Throughout the play, Killian did not take his eyes off the faithful, followed her emotions, and when they left the hall, he asked if everything was all right. The girl with ruby hair answered positively and admitted that the play was very interesting. She told her husband that if she had known that she would like it so much, she would not have refused the invitation to the theater earlier. Killian asked what his wife would do in Odelida's place. She said that of course she would choose a rich baron. Killian asked for an explanation of the choice. Then his wife said that she would not commit suicide and abandon a rich man. Laszlo is by no means a positive character because he knew Odelida's situation, but continued to hide his identity. Edith concluded that the guy was doing a terrible thing. He was just testing the girl in such a cunning way and testing her love. Killian asked if it was possible to succumb to the temptation of money when you love. His wife replied that it was not only about money. Lady Edith explained that the fate of her family depended on Odelida's decision. She added that the play resembles the fate of Killian. The girl said that Hubert was shown as a negative character, but he was the only one who really loved Odelida. He was honest. Lady Edith noted that the ending of the play was not very plausible because Laszlo married the princess. When the main character of the play found out this, she committed suicide. Edith called it a stupid act. The girl with ruby hair concluded that in reality, Hubert and Odelida would have been together. Killian did not understand how his wife had come to this conclusion, and she explained that there was such a thing as time. The girl smiled and added that people are stronger than they think. Their unapproachable hearts thaw and their wounds heal. At first, the young master had the thought that his wife was trying to charm him with sweet words again. The guy looked into her kind and sincere eyes and realized that he was mistaken, because Edith herself is a strong person. Killian took the girl with ruby hair by the hand and offered to take a walk if she was not tired. Lady Edith gladly agreed, and the couple went for a walk in the evening city, illuminated by the setting sun. The thought slipped through the girl's head that her husband had already spent time with someone because he walked confidently, as if he knew the route. For a moment, Edith felt embarrassed, even sad. But then she saw a girl calling for flowers. A girl with ruby hair asked her husband to stop, approached the young flower seller and found out the price of the bouquet. Suddenly, the husband appeared next to his wife, handed the girl a few bills and said that this should be enough. Lady Edith and the girl were greatly surprised by such a noble act, and the young master gave the bouquet to his wife. He concluded that there was only one noble woman in the entire empire who tried to buy flowers on her own, and her husband was next to her. Edith happily thanked the young man for the flowers and said that it was the first time she had received such a bouquet. Killian was embarrassed, assuming that the girl was receiving a sluggish bouquet for the first time, and said that she should have bought a fresh bouquet in the morning. Lady Edith protested and explained that it was the first time she had ever received flowers in this way. The girl remembered that in her previous life, her parents did not spend money on such an impractical thing as flowers. The girl's only lover could not even save their relationship from betrayal, not to mention giving flowers. The bookish Edith must have been sent a lot of flowers. She probably didn't get them because Shane Riegelhoff ordered them to be removed. Lady Edith looked at the bouquet and thought that receiving flowers as a gift was exciting. They gave off a pleasant aroma. The young master was surprised at the way the girl looked at the flowers with a mesmerized look, but suddenly she came to her senses. Lady Edith suggested that her husband continue his walk and go somewhere else. When her husband agreed, the girl immediately took him by the hand. The spouses, like children, rushed down the street, visiting various shops. They joked and laughed. The young man was happy to see the sparkle in his wife's eyes and offered her to buy delicious popsicles on a stick. A clown stood near the main road and showed various tricks. The girl wanted to come closer to him. The clown tried to attract Edith to the performance, but the girl did not take into account that he would be terrible for her. Her face was distorted with horror. The young master laughed, stretched out his hand, and asked the clown to bring his wife back. Lady Edith was pleasantly surprised that her husband had called her his wife in public, and at that moment she decided to look around. Edith realized that everything she sees, cozy streets, buildings, shops, sights, are created for the main characters. The girl thought that now these benefits, created by the author for the main characters, are destined to be enjoyed by her husband. The girl with the ruby hair wondered if it was because she had passed the condition of the second stage. During the walk, Edith looked at Killian and assumed that he had changed after fulfilling the conditions of the second stage. The girl remembered how recently he himself wanted to spend the night with his wife and then offered to go to the opera with him. The young master added that he really wanted to spend time with his wife to get to know her better. The girl thought that if she was right, then by fulfilling the third condition, she dared to hope for freedom from the original plot. Edith looked at the plot-free people walking by and wondered if she and Killian could make a choice. She looked at the faithful and dreamed of how good it was to choose when to be sad and happy, with whom to be at enmity, whom to love. Killian walked down the corridor and wandered in his thoughts. He thought about going to the opera and walking afterward. He feared that his wife would be bored, but he risked inviting her to the theater as she loves art. The young master assumed that his wife had previously visited the theater many times with other men. But the guy was extremely surprised to see her sincere emotions during the play and was also amazed by her reaction to the bouquet. Killian would never have thought that Edith Riegelhoff had never received flowers before. At the end of the walk, Lady Edith thanked her husband and said that she had discovered a lot of new things that evening. The young master caught himself thinking that he was glad that many things were for Edith for the first time. Suddenly, a pleasant female voice called out to the guy. It belonged to Lady Eliza, who assumed that he was too tired because it was late at night. Killian realized that he had been spending the last few days with Edith, but had not paid any attention to Eliza, and persistently asked what had happened. The fair-haired girl timidly pronounced Lady Edith's name and said that one of the maids had seen her smearing the threads and needle with poison. Lady Eliza's words surprised Killian, but she told him the second shocking news. The girl said that they learned about this from a maid who was found by Cliff after an unexpected disappearance from the estate. The guy was furious and asked the blonde girl how his brother knew this and why the maid had been silent before. But Lady Eliza did not know the answer to any of the questions and said that Cliff had said that he would sort it out himself. The blonde girl admitted that she could not remain silent about this incident and decided to tell Killian. After a little thought, the fair-haired beauty asked the young master if all this was a lie, because Edith was not capable of such a thing. Killian assured that his wife was not involved, and he thought that Lady Edith, a famous villain, was just up to it. Suddenly, a strange sound reached the young man. He asked Eliza if she had just heard someone's exclamation. However, there was no one in the corridor except for the two talkers, and Killian continued his explanation with a calm soul. The guy reasoned that Count Riegelhoff could not order his daughter to kill Lady Eliza, since she had the least influence in the Duke's family. The young master suggested that jealousy could be the reason, but the girl with ruby hair don't. With regret, Killian thought that, instead of wanting her husband's sympathy, his wife felt embarrassed by his attention. The guy told Elise that the maid was probably persuaded, which meant that the enemy had access to the people of the duchy. He announced his intention to interview the rest of the manor's servants, but the girl protested because she did not want to make a fuss. Killian smiled, gave Lady Eliza his tunic and said that it was getting colder in the castle, so she needed to dress warmly. Then he asked if the girl would let him know if Cliff wanted to investigate Edith's cases on his own again. The young master added that he should not tell his brother about this request, otherwise he would hide everything from the blonde beauty. Eliza agreed, and the guy said that it was really late, he was tired, so he would go to the chambers. The blonde girl called out to Killian, but when he turned around and asked what was wrong, she could only say goodnight. 3 days after the opera, the young master sat at a table in his wife's chambers and enjoyed breakfast in her company. Lady Edith was annoyed by the fact that her husband had been eating with her for several days in a row. The girl thought that he was up to something. The girl smiled benevolently and reminded her husband that he had said that there was a lot of work now. Then Killian smiled, called his wife dear, and affectionately said that he had long finished with his work. Lady Edith was embarrassed and thought that such a pretty face should be forbidden by law. Later, the girl pulled herself together and said that she was asking seriously, because she noticed that the guy was behaving strangely. The young master looked at his wife uncomprehendingly and said that it was quite normal for a married couple to eat together. Now Killian realized what feelings the wife had experienced during the entire marriage when faced with her husband's rudeness. The young master said that he had been doing wrong for a long time, but he wanted to make things right. Killian asked Edith if she could get to know her better and added that she was still the main suspect in past events. The young master pointed out that every day it was becoming more and more certain that Lady Edith was innocent. The girl did not believe that a man was sitting in front of her, who at the wedding did not let his wife touch him and put on a wedding ring on his own. Edith thanked her husband from the bottom of her heart for such kind words and mentally assumed that he had changed so much after the second stage. The guy was surprised and said that a girl with ruby hair does not need to thank someone who should ask for forgiveness. Killian said that he wanted to spend more time with his wife, and the girl replied that the spouses already spend a lot of time together. Killian touched the hand of the faithful and noted that it was necessary to spend time with a person to get to know him better. The guy took the girl's hand and said that he would be glad to know what she loved, what she hated, what habits she had. Edith did not understand what was happening, but then she guessed that the theme of the novel was a harem of male characters obsessed with the main character. Killian brought his wife's hand closer, saying that he did not want to miss anything about his wife, but noticing her distorted face, he asked if she was comfortable. The girl mentally replied to her husband that he did not have to be so scrupulous in an ordinary conversation with his wife. After this conversation, the observation phase began, when the husband and wife spent a large amount of time together. At first, the girl with ruby hair thought that she would be very embarrassed, knowing that Killian was watching and evaluating her. But everything turned out to be much more comfortable and natural than she expected. The spouses constantly communicated, got along well with each other. Lady Edith had the feeling that a wall had fallen between her and the young master, and they had become a married couple. One day, Killian and Lady Edith were sitting on the great terrace and drinking tea with Cliff and Lady Eliza. The husband told his wife that she needed to take at least one cape because his wife could catch a cold. My wife said that the summer was not over yet, and added that if she did catch a cold, no one would notice it. Her husband outrageously asked how she could say such a thing, because in any case he would notice when Edith was bad. The argument was interrupted by an exclamation from Lady Eliza, who called them a real married couple, and Lady Edith was embarrassed. Killian only smiled conspiratorially and asked Lady Eliza if it was true. Lady Edith was stunned by her husband's reaction, who did not seem to be at all hurt by the phrase. Lady Eliza tried to change the subject and said that today everyone would drink strawberry tea from a well-known shop in the capital. The girl with ruby hair said that she could already smell a pleasant strawberry scent. Killian noted that yesterday the faithful also enjoyed the taste of strawberry pie and asked if she liked strawberries. The girl explained that strawberries have a slight sourness and a pleasant aroma. Her husband asked why she uses rose perfume. Edith replied that she liked strawberries as food, not perfume, and suddenly it dawned on her that Killian was making Eliza jealous. Lady Edith thought that she should play along with her husband and asked if he liked perfume with a floral scent. Killian was confused, and while he was considering his answer, Cliff interrupted the newlyweds' dialogue. He said that he understands that their honeymoon is in full swing, but Lady Eliza can't get Killian out of the conversation. The brother felt embarrassed. He apologized to the blonde girl for not paying attention to her at all lately. Edith found Cliff's behavior strange because in the novel he kept his brother, the second main male character, under control. Eliza said that she did not want to say anything serious, just to notify that the shoes from the boutique, in which she had been earlier, were already ready. Cliff remembered his brother saying that he wanted to go there with Eliza because there was a place next to the boutique that he liked very much. Suddenly, the young master replied that he would if his wife did not mind, and everyone turned their eyes sharply towards Lady Edith. Cliff called her name, but she said she was thinking, didn't hear the question, so she asked her to repeat it. Lady Eliza asked Edith how she was feeling, but she said she was all right and she thought she looked bad. Then the blonde beauty said that there was nothing important in going to the boutique, so she would be fine if Cliff kept her company. Killian said hurriedly that he had time for Lady Eliza, especially since there were many boutiques that Edith would like. Hearing her name, the girl with ruby hair came to her senses and realized that she had missed half of the conversation because of the flight in her thoughts. Cliff intervened and said that on the same day his father, he and Killian's wife were obliged to be present at the Imperial Palace. The guy concluded that the three of them would not be able to go shopping, so Killian and Eliza would have to go together. Edith thought that this was different from the usual behavior of Cliff, who always did not allow his brother and girlfriend to stay together. During a walk after tea, the girl with ruby hair caught herself thinking that she was missing something. She knew that the shoes were ordered by Killian and Eliza together, and that was before Cliff even gained the status of the male protagonist. The girl mused that it would be natural for a jealous Cliff to want to get rid of Killian's gift for Eliza. The girl looked at her husband and concluded that he had behaved unusually. It was also strange that she had been summoned to the Imperial Palace. At that moment, Killian indignantly asked what he was doing there and pointed to Demi Sinclair standing and talking to the Duke. As Killian and Edith came closer, the young master greeted them and smirked, saying that he hadn't seen them in a long time. The guy asked from now on to call his wife with the surname Ludwig, and joined a business conversation with his father and Demian. The next day, the newlyweds had breakfast, and Killian reported that the Earl of Sinclair wanted the rights to the iron mines in the south.
Like this video. Hit the like button and subscribe for more videos.